Greetings and welcome to the Sports Shuffle. It is October 21st. I am Flying Ryan Go Crystal, along with playing injured today.
Tampa Motor Mouth Joel Verlin.
Yeah, no podcast end of last week or Wednesday this week due to an injury on the other side of the camera. I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but
Yeah,
Joel, a
let's
little bit
just say,
limited.
let's just say all sorts of fun when you're limited to using your non-dominant hand. All
Yeah, so
sorts of fun.
Joel took a little time to recuperate. We did get the picks finally updated. Joel is still winning by 6 games, but last few weeks have been a little bit closer. So that's, I guess, good news. We both kind of found a little bit of a groove, both 10-4 last week. So not too bad. Not too bad.
We're ready to hopefully not make sucky picks this week. Woo!
Well, we both did pick Arizona. So we're both 1-0 after the fantastic Thursday night game, which is something we can't say very often. We'll get into that here shortly. We'll talk about the little minor news that happened yesterday.
It was an interesting game when the a pick six was overshadowed by a backflip.
Yeah, back-to-back pick sixes, by the way. We'll talk about that little piece of news.
And it
that
wasn't
came through.
Jameis.
No,
It wasn't Jameis.
He looked like Jameis in the results department, but he was not Jameis. We'll talk about that little itty bitty piece of news that broke late in that game. That I guess we'll get to it eventually. Not a big deal. It's only one of the best players in football getting traded. And yeah, we'll make our picks. And Joel's got a fantasy trade 10 guys to go for article he wants to go over, and we'll see what we think about that. Speaking of trades, it is that time where you have buys. You might have to get a little bit aggressive. And if you're in dynasty leagues, this is the time where you kind of start looking, is this a team that can win, or is this a team that you have to start planning for next year already? Be aggressive if you think you can win. That's what I've had to do. I've had to start selling off future for current because injuries are a real thing and they suck really, really badly.
Almost as much as buys.
Yeah. So before we go any further, let's talk about the game last night. The Cardinals 42-31 win over the New Orleans Saints, 42-34 win over the New Orleans Saints led by Andy Dalton. Let's go through the stats quickly if NFL.com wants to cooperate because its site is so bad sometimes. Andy Dalton, 4 touchdowns, 6 if you include the 2 he threw to the wrong team. Not a great night for him. I mean, 4 touchdowns. Fantasy-wise, that's a great thing. As soon as I hit stats, the entire thing disappears. Thank you, NFL.com, for being just truly terrible.
And that's on technology.
That's after the Excel spreadsheet for the picks didn't want to work. That's after Joel's camera didn't want to work. So clearly, even though we're back, the technology still is on vacation. But there's always another way to find the information you need because we all have a smartphone and all the information in the universe, roughly 5 inches from our buttholes, in the form of our phones. So let's go through these stats. Andy Dalton, 30 of 47, 361 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks. 2 of those picks were for touchdowns. So Andy Dalton, a Hall of Fame level night for touchdown passes, just unfortunately 2 to the wrong team. Alvin Kamara, this game ended up in a pretty negative game script for him. 11 carries for 49 yards, but did also chip in 7 catches for 56 yards. Leader of the receiving corps is one Chris Olave, the rookie. 7 catches on 14 targets for 106 yards. Even without Michael Thomas, they could not stop him at all. For the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, nothing spectacular, but he didn't really have to do anything. 20 of 29, 204 yards and a touchdown. He did also get 30 yards on the ground. Benjamin, though, 12 carries, 92 yards, and a touchdown. Whatever that is, I can hear it through the speakers, Joel. DeAndre Hopkins back from suspension, 10 receptions, 103 yards, no touchdowns, but was everything in the passing game. Again, only 20 completions for Kyler Murray, half of them going to DeAndre Hopkins, and 14 out of 29. So just about half of the targets going to DeAndre Hopkins. Breaking last week that we didn't cover, Hollywood Brown out for an extended period of time with a foot injury. He is on IR. He will miss at least the next 4 weeks. I believe they're calling it a 4 to 6 week injury. So for fantasy, he will be back roughly the Cardinals bye week is week.
Absolutely brutal this year.
So he'll be back roughly the time right before the fantasy playoffs. So hopefully if you have him, you make the playoffs. He's going to be a big boost coming back to your roster. Lot of stuff in the injury department we have to catch up on. We're not going to get to all of it, but 34-42 win for the Cardinals. 2 defensive touchdowns, not the big fantasy bonanza, but if you had Olave, you had Kyler Murray, you had DeAndre Hopkins or Benjamin, we were pretty happy in this game. Juwan Johnson, 2 touchdowns for the Saints, no Adam Troutman, so that maybe not the best pickup, but he's at least someone in the dead zone of tight end that you might have to consider going forward. All right, now let's get to some injuries. Let's start with the players that have already been ruled out for Sunday. Already ruled out for Sunday starts with Carson Wentz. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with a thumb injury. Logan Thomas, the tight end, also out as well. Randall Cobb and Christian Watson for the Packers, both out. Christian Watson, a hamstring injury. Randall Cobb, an ankle injury. Cobb looking 2 to 4 weeks. Kadarius Toney, Jamal Agnew, Cameron Brate with that scary head injury from Sunday. Julio Jones still not back from that knee problem, as well as Shaq Leonard for the Bucs. J.K. Dobbins. Not only is he not out, he had a knee injury last year, came back, started playing, had it swell up and start causing some problems last week. You saw Kenyon Drake get a lot of work. J.K. Dobbins out 4 to 6 weeks. Now will go under the knife again. Arthroscopic surgery to clear out scar tissue. Not a significant long-term injury, but hopefully will help that knee be good going forward. Elijah Moore will be out. He requested a trade. He's not going to get that trade for the Jets. Darren Waller out with a hamstring injury. Dustin Hopkins also out with a hamstring injury. The kicker for the Chargers, who kicked with a bad hamstring last week. Joshua Kelly and Josh Palmer also out for the Cardinals. Those are your already ruled out. You still got a lot of guys that are going to be questionable. You're going to have Christian McCaffrey. You don't know the role coming up after the news we'll get to here in a second. So keep an eye on those rosters. Again, the bye weeks, the Bills and the Vikings being the 2 big ones. That's Diggs, that's Cook, that is Justin Jefferson, that is Josh Allen, of course, out as well. Those are the biggest of the bye week. Of course, bye weeks are in full effect, and we'll have to deal with them as a fantasy community as best we can. So, Joel, let's talk about the itty-bitty small piece of news from last night. Christian McCaffrey traded to the San Francisco 49ers for a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round pick in 2023 and a 5th round pick in 2024. The Niners go all in on another player. They went all in on Trey Lance. Trey Lance now hurt. Now a big move to get Christian McCaffrey. Elijah Mitchell still on IR, hasn't come back in the running back area, and Jeff Wilson was very disappointing last week.
Yeah, you have to think about it, flying that the 49ers sent a 2023 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, along with a 2024 5th for CMC. That is a combined pick value of $696.5, which equates roughly to the value of the 26 overall pick, 700 points on the NFL draft pick value chart. This was, of course, a tweet from Jeff Ratcliffe.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey going away from the Panthers. Robbie Anderson was also traded away to the Cardinals from the Panthers last week after a blow up on the sideline. DJ Moore is a foundational piece and going to be tough to move, but the Carolina Panthers have basically said, we're all in for the
future. Can you just imagine if you're DJ Moore wanting so much to be the hell off of that team, and you hear you're a foundational part, and he's just like, oh,
no, let me go. Let me go to Kansas City. Let me go to Green Bay. Let me go to a team, Baltimore, who signed Sean Jackson, that needs a wide receiver like DJ Moore. DJ Moore is a great wide receiver, but he's been stuck in Carolina. So we don't see it in the fantasy game. The talent is 100% absolutely unequivocally there.
Baker Mayfield is working out so damn well in Carolina right now.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield is bad. PJ Walker, 60 yards passing last week. Sam Darnold coming to the rescue off the IR. So let's just say Carolina is all in for the future. They're going to be drafting a quarterback next year.
Are they going to be bringing back Cam Newton again?
No. He is a YouTuber now, and that is sad. But that being said, they're going to draft a quarterback. They're now the odds-on favorite for the number 1 overall pick. I can't imagine we're going to pick Carolina to win a game the rest of the season. Personally, I don't see it happening. Even in that division where the leading team, Atlanta and Tampa Bay, both 3-3, Carolina getting rid of Christian McCaffrey, I think, absolutely kills this
They're just
offense.
they are in absolute fire sale mode. I mean, it is just there's a stick of fork in them. Their season is done. I seriously don't think you have any hopes of them sniffing the playoffs. Like they are definitely in a Denny Green mode. They are who we thought they were.
Here's the questions I have. If this game happened, who would you take between Carolina and Houston today? I don't think I have to think about it. I think I go
think
Houston.
Yeah, as much as you think Houston is a bunch of hot garbage, and they are, Carolina is just so much worse.
Yeah, let's go to another team that's got a bad record so far, the Detroit Lions or Carolina. Detroit's got a high-powered offense.
Ooh,
That Carolina offense can't compete. That defense isn't good enough to stop them. I think Detroit takes that one easily.
I don't know. I don't know. Detroit really, after last week, had me lose some major confidence in them. They just got absolutely wasted.
Yeah, the Patriots defense showed up that week. So, I mean, but that's the level of competition you're looking at. I think if I listed out Seattle today, that's no question. Pittsburgh today, you're probably leaning Pittsburgh. Trying to think of some more
Well,
not great teams. Jacksonville.
Pittsburgh is just absolutely nuts when you're having Coach Bolus calling out players who are still living in the Super Bowl. That ain't good, kids.
No. So that's what I'm saying. I don't see Carolina winning more than one game the rest of the season. If I put the over/under at 1.5, I take the under. You put the over/under at half a win the rest of the year. I don't know if I take the over for Carolina. Not looking at their schedule, I don't think I put another win on the board for Carolina. I think they're a 1-16 team. They're locking up the number overall pick, and they're going to get that quarterback of the future. Try and trade up, get some more extra picks, and just build again from scratch.
Baker got out of Cleveland, but the grass is not always greener on the other side.
Carolina, I don't think it matters who's there. There's not many quarterbacks that could have went to Carolina and really turned that ship around. I think it's a flawed team. Had bad coaching. Now it's getting torn down. So that's the Carolina side of things.
Yeah, because
San Francisco.
Cam Newton was probably the best chance that team had.
Now let's look at San Francisco. San Francisco 3-3, tied for first in that division. They've got Debo, they've got Kittle, they've got Ayuk, who had a monster week 6, and they're a running team. And now they've got
mass destruction.
Yeah, they've got a guy who went to Stanford, who's familiar with that area. He's going to be very comfortable going back to California. And you got to remember, these are human beings. Their comfort in their surroundings is very important. But Christian McCaffrey is, as you said, a weapon of mass destruction. If you get him the ball, he's going to do fantastic things. He's been a fantasy just absurd talent when he's healthy. He's been unquestionably the best fantasy football player for the last 4 or 5 years when healthy. He hasn't been healthy the last couple of years, but getting him on a San Francisco
key words, when healthy.
But you get him on a San Francisco team that is so run heavy, run dominant. You get him with a coach that knows how to scheme open runs. You've got Debo Samuel being a great rusher and receiver. They can get this ball in the passing game and the running game to Christian McCaffrey. They'll have Jeff Wilson. They'll have Elijah Mitchell as a change of pace. They'll still have Juszczyk to lead block, which is something he's never had.
Once again, dangerous.
I mean, if you look at the landscape of the NFC right now, you've got the Eagles, you got the Cowboys, you got the Giants all at 5-1. The Vikings at 5-1.
Eagles also serious run threat too.
Yeah, you got the Vikings at 5-1. And then beyond those 4 teams, it's a lot of mediocre. And I personally don't know if I believe in the Giants quite yet. I don't know if I believe in the Cowboys or the Eagles to be what they are. The Eagles have not had a major test yet.
Still absolutely, unbelievably shocked that what the Giants did to the Packers this past week, when you're just going, are you kidding me? As just something fundamentally has to be up with the Packers.
we'll get into that here in a little bit because the Packers do look flawed, and it's not just Devontae Adams not being there. But for San Francisco, I think this puts them the clear favorites in the NFC West, and I think it puts them at least in the upper echelon of favorites in the NFC, alongside of probably the Eagles and the Vikings right now. Again, I don't know if I believe in the Giants yet. I don't know if I believe in the Cowboys yet. They're getting Dak Prescott back this week, so Dallas, we'll see. But San Francisco took a huge step towards the Super Bowl by getting Christian McCaffrey. Carolina, again, looking towards the future. Let's quickly talk about Green Bay because it hasn't looked like Green Bay of old. Aaron Rodgers hasn't looked good. That running game, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon not getting it going. Romeo Doubs looks like he's got flashes of potential to be a great wide receiver, but there's just not enough there.
If I can quickly flash back to Carolina really quickly, just with the meme out there that Matt Rule will make $834,000 a month for the next 48 months sitting on his couch, courtesy of the Carolina Panthers. A fired football coach really is the best job in America.
Yeah. So with the Packers, the defense is very good. The special teams looks like it's a considerable improvement over last year. But Aaron Rodgers, is it age? Is it just not having the binky, the blanket of Devontae Adams that he can go to? You still have Tunyon, who's got some familiarity. You still got Lazard. You still have Cobb, even though he's now hurt. Again, Romeo Doubs looks like he's very, very good, but they can't get the running game going. They can't get the passing game going. Is it just Devontae Adams, or is this maybe finally the NFL catching up with the scheme and maybe Father Time catching up with Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, because it's like Tom Brady, who has definitely
Brady looks done.
Yeah, because he started off, he had that fantastic game against the Dallas Cowboys, and oh my God, it's time for another run and all this, and then you don't know whether it's the changes in coaching, and that was all behind the scenes with all the drama that was going on, or if it's just the chemistry between Bolas and Brady. I'm just not sure what it is. It's just it feels like it's a different chemistry this team right now. This year as opposed to Coach Arians
I think
last
there's a lot
year.
of parallels between the Packers and the Bucks this year. I think we're both very underwhelmed by the performance of the quarterback. I think we expected better from the passing receivers of the passing game for both
Especially
teams.
when you look at you got Devontae Adams, Lazard on the Packers. For the Bucks, you have weapons: Godwin, Evans, when Julio Jones when he's healthy, and
Yeah.
so Brady has weapons to use. Rodgers has weapons to use. They are not being used to their full effectiveness.
Yeah. Now, as far as the Packers go, I do think some familiarity with his receivers. I do think some getting the line back in order because Bakhtiari's been out for so long. He's finally back and healthy. I do think there's some continuity with the Packers that can and hopefully will improve. And if you look at the last few weeks for the Packers, it doesn't sound like a great schedule, but these teams have come up. Tampa Bay, who's been struggling, but they did beat them. Week 4, it was the New England Patriots with Zappy. Patriots have started looking really, really good once again. Then you look in week number 5, where they played the 5-1 New York Giants in London. That's a tough trip. They've fought well and fell to a team that's now 5-1. Then last week to the surprising New York Jets. It wasn't a clean game by Green Bay by any means, but the Jets are not as bad of a team as you're thinking. So I think this week against Washington, the Commanders, I think this is the game you're going to go, okay, maybe it was just good matchups, bad matchups for the Packers is going to get back on track. This is a week that if they look bad, I think we go Green Bay is bad.
Many alternate universes out there where the Commanders beat the Packers. Granted, the Packers are having problems, but as absolutely hapless a team as we have seen the Commanders be, it's just hard for me to see if they end up beating the Packers. That's just going to be the biggest holy crap moment, I think, of the entire NFL year. But I just can't see that happening. I mean, crazier crap has happened, but I can't foresee that happening.
Yeah, if Green Bay falls to Washington, I think
Oh
we
my good
have
God.
panic in Green Bay. But if they get the win, they're 4-3. Minnesota is off this week, so they'll maintain at least shouting distance with the
I
Vikings. They have
really
another
tend to
game
think
against them.
it's got to be a get right game for Green Bay.
Yes, this is the week you want to see Aaron Rodgers look like the MVP that he's been the last 2 years. You want to see Romeo Dubs and Alan Lazard have good games. You want to see that ground game get going. For the Bucks, they're playing Carolina. We just talked about how bad Carolina is. Don't blow it.
That's another get right game that
Yeah.
if the Bucks for any reason lose to the Carolina Panthers, I don't know if you say your season's in serious jeopardy, but it's definitely showing danger signs.
Yeah. I mean, that whole division's not solid this year. The winner's going to probably be the 3 or the 4 seed at this point
The
because they're not going
Bucks
to catch the NFC
should
North or the NFC East
have
leader.
enough offensive weapons and a decent enough defense they can bully through that division. And the question is just whatever it is that's going on with Brady, he has to get it right.
Yeah. And shout out to the Falcons for winning ugly the last couple of weeks and getting to 3-3 as well. All right. So let's go into the rest of the picks. I think we basically just covered Green Bay and Washington. We're both going to be on Green Bay by the sounds of it. So we'll fill that one in. We'll go over the fantasy options here in a little bit for that one. But we'll start at the top. Cleveland at Baltimore. Baltimore is still winning this division at 3-3. They are tied with the Cincinnati Bengals. For Baltimore, sounds like Mark Andrews is going to play. Had a knee injury. Should be good to go. Lamar Jackson is going to be good to go. Kenyon Drake now is looking like the surefire starter for this team, at least this week. Gus Edwards on the horizon, possibly. But for right now, Kenyon Drake becomes, I think, a must-start. Cleveland's run defense is atrocious. Rashad Bateman could be back, which would be a big boost to the passing game as well. I think all of those, if they play, are in your lineup. For Cleveland, it is really just Nick Chubb. He's the only consistent option. Amari Cooper is there, but he's been very boom or bust. I think you have to play Cooper if you have him. But Nick Chubb is the only slam dunk play. Cooper, if you have him, you're probably going to be forced to start him, but he could be great, could be terrible. Depends on how this game goes. This one is in Baltimore. Cleveland has fallen flat. They've lost 3 in a row after the surprising 2-1 start. Deshaun Watson is still 5 games away. Cleveland, I think, needs to get 2 more wins in the next 5 to really have any shot at that sneak into the playoffs when Deshaun Watson comes back. Baltimore, they've been very disappointing. They've won and then blown a lead. Won, then blown a lead, and then won. And then last week, they blew another lead. So that trend seems to think they'll win this week and hold on to it.
Yeah, as many questions as you tend to have about Baltimore, you have even more questions about Cleveland, especially with that dominant running attack that should just absolutely have them run wild. All this team is doing is saying, we really need Deshaun Watson to come back out of reinstatement and out of suspension just because uh, as much as Jacoby Brissett is a placeholder, he's showing how much they really need a real quarterback in that team right now. As just Cleveland has had some okay games, but they've also had some pretty piss poor games. So as many questions as you had about the Baltimore Ravens, and there are definite questions out there. I think you have more about the Cleveland Browns, so I'm going Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm going to take Baltimore as well. It seems like they rebound from these blown leads very well. Cleveland's defense has been bad. Do you think Kenyon Drake is going to be good? Don't forget, Lamar Jackson is top 10 in rushing, I believe, on the season. He is a very, very good rushing threat against a very bad rushing defense, not to mention I don't have a whole lot of faith in the passing game of Cleveland because of Jacoby Brissett. Deshaun Watson, for what it's worth, is still on track with all of his conditions to be reinstated for the December 4th game in Houston against the Texans.
Isn't there
So
another
good news
lawsuit or
for Cleveland
something
there.
I heard out there?
Yeah, but they don't care at this point. At this point, it's like, what's one more? We've already punished you. You know, they're not going to go back and reevaluate it for another allegation. That's not going to happen. But he's still on track to be reinstated. I'm going to take Baltimore. I just think they're the better team. Baltimore, the rushing defense of the Browns is a huge liability, and that is a huge strength for the Ravens. So I think the Ravens take this one fairly easily at home. Next up, Tampa Bay at Carolina. You can't play anybody from Carolina anymore. I think if you are in a super deep, like our 16-teamer, you're going to be forced into DJ Moore. Or a dynasty where you have a lot of
you have
flexes,
Baker
that's about it.
Mayfield as a quarterback, you're definitely looking elsewhere.
Baker Mayfield, doubtful. PJ Walker's probably the starter.
Even if you have Baker Mayfield as a backup quarterback, you are looking elsewhere.
Yes, you try and get him off your roster if you have him, but it's going to be tough to sell him. In a dynasty, you can't just drop him. He's too good to drop, but you can't trade him anywhere. For Tampa Bay, Leonard Fournette, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin, I think, are surefire starts. Tom Brady has a lot of upside, but to play devil's advocate here, this game could be 28-3 at halftime with a couple defensive scores, and Brady is handing the ball off the majority of the second half. So if you're going to play Tom Brady, understand there is that potential that this game gets so out of hand, he is not playing in the fourth quarter. He's handing the ball off and just getting the clock to 0 as fast as possible. But he does have a great matchup if they decide to throw the ball. Evans, Godwin, and Fournette just too good to bench. Game is in Carolina. I don't expect a lot of turnout for the Panthers fans because I think they understand this is going to be a really, really rough rest of season. But any hope here? I know I don't see any.
It's time to cage that virtual cat that the Panthers brought out because they are just absolute god awful, and that's just another one of the things that as many problems as you have that you can bring out about the Bucks, you have so many more glaring ones about the Panthers that you're just looking at that makes the Bucks look like a shining diamond compared to how bad the Panthers are.
Yeah, Carolina is right now the turd you cannot polish. Tampa Bay should win this one easily. After last week, that upset in Pittsburgh where Tom Brady cursing out his offensive lineman, you are so much better than you're effing playing right now. I think Tampa Bay is going to rally around that and get a win this week against a vastly inferior team.
Love tonight.
And in Tom Brady's defense, the line is a big issue. And Tom Brady does not do well when he gets sacked. That's been a big issue for him this year. He's been under pressure. And that line could have played a lot better than it did last week. Now, we move on to Atlanta at Cincinnati. Both teams
under pressure. So.
Yeah. Atlanta and Cincinnati, both teams are 3-3. Atlanta's got a lot of weird things. Marcus Mariota has been good enough to start. I know in some Dynasty Super Flexes, he's in my starting lineup. In some season long where I've had Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, he was my pivot this week, someone I could pick up off a waiver. So interesting start, not necessarily someone you're going to start over a Justin Herbert type or Lamar Jackson by any means, but if you have that Tom Brady, you have that Aaron Rodgers who hasn't gotten it going, even though he's got good matchups, maybe this is an interesting pivot to Marcus Mariota. He's been good all season. He was the offensive player of the week last week, so take that for what it's worth. Out of the backfield, it looks like Caleb Huntley's been the number one, although Tyler Algier is still there. I don't know if I trust either one of them. Passing game, Kyle Pitts. If you have to play a tight end and you have Kyle Pitts, you're probably playing him. Did get a touchdown last week. And Drake London for the Falcons seems like the best wide receiver, but there's not a lot of passing volume here. Marcus Mariota's value is a lot on the ground himself. For Cincinnati, Jamar Chase will play, had a hip injury, but he will play. He will be in your lineup. T. Higgins in your lineup, Joe Mixon in your lineup, and Joe Burrow all definitely in your lineup. Hayden Hurst is an interesting dart throw tight end play, but not necessarily the best. Atlanta is going to be down a major corner as well in this game. So I think this could be an offensive explosion for the Bengals, and Atlanta's got an offense that can be potent at times. They did score 28 last week against a very good San Francisco 49ers defense. So this could be one of those weird, sneaky, interesting, close, high-scoring games that we love to watch, but who gets the win?
Yeah, because this game, it's just you look at the – now, if you're looking against the spread, I think you might go for the Falcons just because of how close they have been able to keep some of the games and the fact that they can actually score. Now, of course, the biggest thing about the Falcons is can they freaking keep the lead, which usually the answer is no. Now last week was
they held on last week. They've actually been better the last couple of weeks holding on to leads when they've gotten them.
Yeah, no. Now last week was definitely a very crazy aberration when it comes to the Falcons, you're going, wait, what? They won? But when you're looking at the matchup this week, when you're talking the Falcons against the Bengals, it's very, very hard to say, okay, yeah, you know what, I'm going to go and, what the hell, and go the Falcons. And crazier stuff has happened, but in a sane universe, I don't know what that is, but I've heard those exist. In the sane universe, one cannot pick the Falcons in this game, and I've got to go to the Bengals.
Yeah, against the spread, I'm taking Atlanta because I do think this is going to be a 3 or 4 point game. They're 6.5 point dog on the road, but Cincinnati, again, they started 0-2. They're now 3-1 in their last four. They've been a lot better. They had the disappointing loss to Baltimore, division rivalry, 2 point game. You can kind of put that off to the side. It's not a telling loss. I think Cincinnati is built to make another run into the playoffs and beyond. Hopefully play out in the first round for them. I think Cincinnati's just the better team here, but I do think this might be a 38-35 type of game where the defenses need not apply. So fantasy options could be massive in this one, but I think Cincinnati is the safer pick. I think Cincinnati players in fantasy is the safer play, and I'm going to lean Cincinnati. Next up, Detroit coming off the bye at the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas getting Dak Prescott back after a 4-1 run with Cooper Rush. They are 4-2 on the season. Detroit has been a very good offense until week 5 against the Patriots, where they got shut out, then went to the bye week. Now, good news. Amon-Ra St. Brown back to full workload. DeAndre Swift looks to me like he's going to play. He is listed as questionable, but it's better than he's been the last few weeks. Jared Goff has been a streaming option in fantasy. I don't know if I play him against that very, very good Dallas defense, but it's there. And TJ Hawkinson at tight end is still very viable, even though he's definitely a boom bust tight end. For Dallas, I think that defense might be a sneaky play because they'll get some sacks, they'll get some turnovers from Goff. But Zeke Elliott, this is a great matchup for running back, so you could probably play Zeke or Tony Pollard and be just fine. CeeDee Lamb should be good. Michael Gallup should be good. And Dr. Schultz, Dalton Schultz, both Dr. and Dalton, should be good plays for Dallas as well. The question here for me on picking this game is how rusty will Dak Prescott be in his first game back?
With as rusty as
With the thumb in.
Dak Prescott could possibly be coming back, I think the bigger question definitely has to be, what is the future for Jared Goff and for Detroit? Is he that franchise's man to lead them forward? The Lions just were absolutely, unbelievably humiliated by the Patriots last game. And matchup doesn't get any easier when you're going up against one quality defense when we're talking the Patriots and another quality defense when you're talking the Cowboys. So question is I don't know how much hope the Lions have, but it's just a question of if the Cowboys make too many mistakes, and I tend not to see that. I think Dak Prescott is going to be on a mission to prove himself, to show he can still play football. He is hungry to get back out on the field after being gone for so long, just wanting to prove that he is still their man. And I think he's going to do a better job of that than Jared Goff is on Sunday. So I never thought I'd say this, but I've got to definitely pick the Cowboys because I tend not to have too much confidence in the Detroit Lions that had all that luster to start, and they only have one win to show for it.
Yeah, I think Dallas is just too good here. I think they'll get the win. Dak Prescott doesn't need to be great. They can ride Zeke very easily this week. Detroit, long-term with Jared Goff is not the answer. They're going to be in the top 5 of the draft, it looks like, and they will go get their quarterback of the future. They have a great offensive line. They have a defense that needs some work, but they can work on free agency and those later round draft picks to work on that defense. The offense is ready to go. You get one of these high-end rookie quarterbacks, they can be great next year after, they can start moving the right direction, but I don't think they're quite ready. Dallas with Dak Prescott, they are now 2 games behind the Eagles after the loss last Sunday night. And I kind of think this is a must win to not fall too far behind. You go to 4-3 or 2.5 games back of the Eagles, and you've already lost to them once. That's a lot. You have to beat bad teams, especially when they come to your building. That's what's happening with Dallas. So I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys to win this one. All right, next up, it is the Evan Ingram revenge game, also known as Giants at Jacksonville. For the Giants, it's going to be Saquon Barkley, and I think that might be end of list. Daniel Bellinger at tight end is interesting, but you can't trust a whole lot of that wide receiving core. Wando Robinson, probably most interesting of those receivers, but nothing super exciting there. Kenny Golladay and Kadarius Toney both out this week. For the Jaguars, James Robinson, Travis Etienne, been a little bit disappointing of late. Trevor Lawrence has been okay. He's been boom bust as well. Christian Kirk leading the way at wide receiver, but has been falling back a little bit. And then the aforementioned Evan Ingram might be the only kind of safe option for the Jaguars at tight end. He's not going to be fantastic, but he's not going to get you a 0 as well. These are two teams going the opposite directions. Giants 5-1, Jaguars 2-4. Both teams were 2-1 at one point. So who gets to win here?
Yeah, as this case is momentum going forward until it stops. Got to pick the Giants until they show me they can't get the job done, especially when you're going up against a team like the Jaguars.
Yeah,
it just you never thought that you would ever think the New York Giants good. Wait, what? Are you kidding me? But it is an alternate universe, but you gotta ride the trend that's going in the direction, and Jaguars aren't going anywhere right now. And yeah, even as much questions as the Giants have themselves, and they definitely do, that still somehow they're winning. So gotta go the G-men.
Yeah, I think you trust the Giants a lot more. Saquon Barkley can tear apart this Jaguars defense. I do think this is going to be a lower scoring game. So defenses for both sides might be good. And as long as Daniel Jones doesn't lose the game for the Giants, they should be able to win this one fairly easily. So far, I would say all of these games have been pretty straightforward picks. The next one, maybe not so much, as the Indianapolis Colts 3-2-1 go to Tennessee to play the Titans, who are coming off their bye at 3-2. This is a very big game in the division. The Titans already beat the Colts earlier this season. For the Colts, Jonathan Taylor expected to return. Also will be in your lineup if he does so. Matt Ryan had his best game of the season last week. He is a streaming option with the Jalen Hurts, Kirk Cousins, Josh Allen bye week that we're in right now. So he is at least a streaming option. Michael Pittman's going to be in your lineup. The Colts tight end room is very tough because sometimes it's Mo Alley Cox, sometimes it's Kyle Granson. Jelani Woods had some of his moments. So I think you put those away. You don't look at those unless you have to. I know I'm playing Granson in a very deep super flex dynasty league that's a tight end premium, hoping for the best, but expecting the worst. That's also with Darren Waller out. So for the Colts, you got some options. But for the Titans, I think your option starts and ends with Derrick Henry, the king. Looks like he's back to form. Ryan Tannehill might be a sneaky streaming option as well. If Tennessee wins this game, they will be a game and a half up on the Colts and have won both games. So this is a must win to me for the Colts to not fall behind like that early. The Tennessee Titans, though, do seem to have the Colts number of late. So who gets the win here?
It's a question we're talking that both tanks, because we've got two tanks here. We've got Jonathan Taylor on one side.
Probably the best two running backs in the league, not named Christian McCaffrey.
And on the other side, you have one Derrick Henry. We're talking the immovable force and the unstoppable objects about ready to collide. And you're talking about both of those. I think right now I would have more confidence in Derrick Henry and the Tennessee Titans just because of the questions of injuries that Jonathan Taylor has had to shake off. As he's had two very disappointing weeks if you started him in fantasy, as you're going, what happened? And he's still injured. And that is one tremendous goose egg on your scoreboard that you could have put somebody else, even for 10 points, even for his 15 points, and still it would have been better than freaking nothing. So I tell you, I know Jonathan Taylor may be the sexier of the two running backs, but I just tend to have more faith in the Tennessee Titans and in Derrick Henry until Taylor can just shake off all of his injury bugs. So for
Yeah.
right now, I'm leaning Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm going to take Tennessee as well. I agree with you that Derrick Henry is the one you can rely on more right now. Of course, anybody coming back from an injury is not necessarily your best option. Coming back from an ankle and being a running back, it could limit him just a little bit. And he has been one of the bigger bust candidates of the season. Tennessee, again, does seem to have the Colts number. That offense is one of the worst scoring offenses in the league. Now, getting Jonathan Taylor back will help those numbers as well. But I'm going to take Tennessee in this one. I think they get the job done. They start taking control of this division. And we move on. We've kind of already talked about who we think is going to win. We're both on Green Bay, but let's go over the fantasy options real quick. For Green Bay, it's tough to recommend anybody but names you have to consider. Aaron Rodgers, a quarterback, could be a good option against this bad Washington defense.
9% pick the Commanders. Who is the 9%?
I think that's drunks and Washington fans, and it's primarily drunks. So Aaron Rodgers has to be considered because Washington's defense is bad. You have to consider Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon this week with the buys in a good matchup. Romeo Dubs and Alan Lazard, Robert Tunyon, all in consideration, but I don't know if any of them are must plays until you see it. I think Dubs might be the best of the pass catchers, and Aaron Jones the best of the running backs, but it's really tough to trust anybody on that Green Bay offense until you start to see it. For Washington, it's going to be Taylor Heineke at quarterback, and I think with all the injuries to Carson Wentz he's been playing through, this could actually be an upgrade of sorts for the Commanders. I think this helps Terry McLaurin, who's been very good with Heineke in the past. And I do think Brian Robinson gets a lot more work this week. He has taken that number one running back role, and Green Bay might
Do
struggle against the run.
you think somebody in the Commanders front office was like, Wentz is hurt? And they like did a private fist bump somewhere.
Oh, darn. No, we can't have that happen. Yeah. So those are the fantasy options here. Again, we've already talked about both on Green Bay. This is a put up or shut up week. So I'm not going to go back and talk about this game even more. But Green Bay, this is a must win for me. And I think Joel agrees. And we move on to the surprising. These are probably two of the more surprising teams in football for opposite reasons. The 4-2 New York Jets going to the 2-4 Denver Broncos. I think we expect those records to be roughly the reverse for each team. For the Jets, Breece Hall.
The Broncos are part of my final thought.
Yeah. For the Jets, you're playing Breece Hall. And I think that might be end of list because this is a ground game that is just set to explode. They haven't been passing the ball with Zach Wilson back. Maybe Michael Carter is a dart throw, gets a couple touchdowns like he did against Miami a couple weeks back. But I think it's Breece Hall. That's how this offense is designed to go. And I think you have to play him. For the Broncos, at running back, I don't know what you do. Melvin Gordon is the starter, but he got 3 carries last week. Latavius Murray got a lot of work, but they've gone back and said we need to get Gordon more involved. He's
the biggest mystery of the week is what is Nathaniel Hackett going to do?
Yeah, Melvin Gordon, the starter, when he was asked about it, he said, well, I was a starter last week. He got 3 carries. So I don't know what you do at running back there. Wide receiver, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy in consideration.
It's been an interesting week for coaches if you think about it with Nathaniel Hackett and Melvin Gordon, and then of course Keenan Allen and with the Chargers literally tweeting out, "WTF are we doing?" After one of his coaches' calls on the game. So, players are definitely getting more mouthy.
Yeah. And Greg Dulcich, a dart throw at tight end. So who gets the win here, Joel? Jets and Broncos. It feels wrong. It feels wrong either way.
I know. This is like before we started when I was saying, yeah, I mean, in baseball, who do you cheer for? Do you cheer for the Astros or do you cheer for the Yankees? And you're going, you cheer for the NL. I'm like, yeah, okay, that sounds right. But this just feels so wrong for me to say. But with how absolutely a complete garbage dumpster fire the Denver Broncos Let's Ride has turned into. You've seen all the memes that just absolutely unbelievably hilarious. But as sad as that is, and it's sad, you're thinking about how much of investment the Broncos did, and you're thinking about some of those talents. You're thinking about Cortland Sutton. You're thinking about Jerry Jeudy, and you're going, "Oh my good God, what happened this year?" So, as much as it pains me to say it, I can't believe. Good God, I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm taking the Jets just because the Denver Broncos are that
Yeah.
good God awful this year.
Yeah, you can't take him. You can't take the Broncos. Unfortunately, you gotta go with the Jets here.
Anytime you've seen them in prime time, it's just like, oh my good God, why are they in prime time again?
Just remember, they gave up a ton of picks and some players for Russell Wilson to be worse than the Seahawks in the standings. I mean, it's been so bad for the Broncos
How bad is it?
that people are petitioning to not see them on prime time for a while, and this team has just not looked good. Now, given last week against the Chargers, they started off 10 for 10 passing the ball, and they looked like a team that maybe was
Like,
going to figure something out, but
I saw a good meme where someone used a picture of the president. And they said that they're signing an executive order that the Broncos are not going to be on prime time anymore.
yeah. I do want to remind everybody that they are a game worse than Seattle, and they gave up everything to Seattle to get Russell Wilson. But we're both on the Jets. We have
Good
so far
trade,
agreed
front
on.
office. Great effing trade,
Yeah,
dudes.
we are so far agreeing on 9 of 9. A lot of straightforward games, I think, this week. Next up, maybe not so much of one, but Houston at Las Vegas for the Texans. Brandon Cooks at wide receiver, Damian Pierce at running back. Damian Pierce looks like an absolute stud in the making. He is with the bye week, he's still a top 14 running back on the season with a week off. So he's going to be in your lineup, I think, the rest of the way. For the Las Vegas Raiders, I think you're looking Devontae Adams. You're looking at Josh Jacobs. And then you've got Hunter Renfrow and Mac Hollins on the periphery, but maybe not necessarily startable. Derek Carr's an interesting dart throw streaming option here. But neither one of these teams has a great defense. I think this is going to be a really big game for Jacobs and Damian Pierce. But both of these teams also have one win. So this is a big win in the standings to try and keep one of them afloat. I think you have one win through 7 weeks or one win through 6 weeks with a tie for the Texans. You start looking towards next year. Vegas, I think, had higher hopes than Houston, but who gets the win?
Yeah, when you're talking about high hopes, it ain't the Raiders just because all of a sudden the Raiders started off with so many expectations when the season started. And we have right now, going into this week, uno win, the same amount as the team that they're facing, the Texans. So I tell you, as I know it's a home game, and I know you tend to have a lot of questions when it comes to the Houston Texans, just because they're not a good team. There are no two ways about it. But bottom line, as many questions as you have with the Houston Texans, the Las Vegas Raiders have been a bigger disappointment, I think, than the Texans, and solely just because of that. It doesn't make much sense. I've got to go Houston.
Uh, both teams coming off the bye, so that's not an advantage for either side. I'm going to take the Raiders mostly because I think Devontae Adams can be a game breaker when needed for the Raiders. I do think Jacobs and Pierce have monster days, but when it comes to the passing game, Devontae Adams is going to really unlock this secondary and score some major points. They look good against the Chiefs in a tough loss that they could have went to overtime. They tried to go for the win, fell 1 point short, but
And
Vegas
Ryan
has been tough.
and
They've
Ryan
lost
also
4 games by 6 points
and Ryan
combined.
also doesn't want to agree every game with me either.
I was tempted to take Houston, but yeah, you going Houston did definitely make the Vegas pick a little easier. But they've been in 1-score games all season in their losses for Vegas, so I think this will at the very least be a close game. And it's not Kansas City, it's not the Chargers, not a team you're expecting to be very good in Houston. I think they can pull it off. Next up, it's Seattle at the Los Angeles Chargers. Geno Smith has to be in consideration for at least a streaming option if he's not already picked up and starting for a team in your fantasy league. Kenneth Walker, if you have him, start him. He has been fantastic through the 2 weeks without Rashad Penny. After the injury, he was 8 of 88 with a touchdown.
Justin
Last week was
Herbert
fantastic.
definitely had a down week last week.
Yeah. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf are interesting in this one as well. For the Chargers, you're going to be playing Herbert. You're going to be playing Austin Eckler. You're going to be playing Mike Williams. Keenan Allen is questionable if he plays. He's in your lineup. And Gerald Everett, I think this might be one of the best tight end starts this week. George Kittle's a very strong one as well. But this could be a great week to have Gerald Everett, especially if you're in need of a tight end.
It's one of the few times you wish you could be a fly on the wall with Keenan Allen and the coach after that week, the first interaction when they like, can I talk to you for a couple of minutes?
Yeah. I would say Keenan Allen's on the wrong side of questionable with the bye week next week, likely to miss this game, but if he plays, it's going to help open this offense up quite a bit.
Because he ended up deleting the tweet very quickly after he sent it, but the internet is like Pepperidge Farm.
The internet never loses. With that being said, as much as looking at it on paper, you think, oh, Seattle is not on the same level as the Chargers. Chargers are only 4-2. The Seahawks are 3-3 and have already pulled off some pretty stunning wins this year. So who gets the win here?
Yeah, as much as I can't believe I'm saying this, that's just I don't have as much confidence in the Chargers as I used to when I was going into this year going, okay, it's a brand new year, it's already full of possibilities, we're ready to kick some more butt. And then you just had some of those games happen that you're just like, okay, now 4-2, so they're still good. They still have the fours on the right side. It's not 2-4, but so some of those two losses that just have you utterly, completely scratching your head. How the hell they happened? So, as much as I would think a slam dunk, especially at home, can't believe I'm saying this, but with the way some of these weeks and some of these games have gone, that not every team that you always think it was going to win is a surefire lock by any stretch of the imagination. I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm going Seahawks.
Yeah, the Chargers back-to-back losses to the Chiefs, no shame there, but then a blowout loss to the Jaguars. So they're prone to stubbing their toe. They almost lost to Cleveland as well. But that being said, I am going to take the Chargers here. I think the defense is good enough, just good enough to hold Seattle back from outscoring them. But this offense has to get going. Austin Eckler has looked fantastic the last month of the season. They're going to have to ride him, especially if Keenan Allen is out. But this secondary is not going to be as strong. Mike Williams will get his. Gerald Everett, I said, might be one of the best tight end plays of the week. So I'm going to take the Chargers. I think this is going to be another high-scoring game this week. So a fantasy bonanza. If you have anybody in this one, you probably want them in your lineup. But I think the Chargers get the win just a little bit more. I'm rooting for Seattle because I think it's a great story to fleece the Denver Broncos and get Russell Wilson and then have a better record than them. But Seattle was a team we were expecting to be a top 5 draft pick at a minimum, and they are now 3-3. A win here gets them to 4-3 and probably leading this division after this week. Anyways, we'll go to the next game. It's the last one before we get to the Sunday night and Monday night games. Kansas City at San Francisco. Christian McCaffrey is the biggest question mark in fantasy.
This one isn't one of the Sunday or Monday night games.
Well, I think Kansas City gets a lot of night games. They got to spread them out. San Francisco gets some night games too. Christian McCaffrey, the biggest question mark right now. We don't know the role this week. It's up in the air if he plays at all. If he does, it might be goal line work, which could be super valuable. Maybe he only gets 3 touches. Maybe he goes and they say, hey, you know how to run a ball. Here you go crazy. So he is very, very iffy. I think if you have him and he's inactive, that's your best case scenario because you don't have to think. But if he's active, it's hard to bench an active Christian McCaffrey. But he's the biggest question mark right now. Not question marks for the Niners are going to be Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. They're in your lineup. Ayuk is interesting after the big week last week, and Jimmy Garoppolo is going to have to throw a lot, I think, in this game to keep up with Kansas City. So he's a potential streaming option as well. For Kansas City, let's just go Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce, definitely in your lineup. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been falling backwards the last few weeks of the season, but this week being a heavy bye week, no Sanders, no Dalvin Cook. You know, there's some guys out this week you would rather be playing, so he might end up in your lineup as well. And then at the wide receiver, I think it's Juju if you're going to try and pick one, but maybe a situation to avoid. San Francisco, I did say with Christian McCaffrey becomes one of the favorites in the NFC, but we don't know how much he's going to play. That makes this game very tough to predict. I think if Christian McCaffrey plays, it's a much closer game if he plays in full or even about half the snaps. But if he doesn't play, I think this definitely feels like Kansas City could take care of business. But that's what we're here to pick. What do you got?
And the whole question is, does CMC play or not? I'm going to go with this game that either he A doesn't play or B plays minimally enough that he is not able to affect the game. He's still learning the whole playbook. He's still getting chemistry with his teammates. He's getting situated with the area. He just literally was traded. So I tend to think that for this week, now if he was inserted full, I think that totally flips the switch and changes around the equation. But for right now, assuming either a minimal or no role at all for CMC just because he's transitioning from one team to another, and he's a human being, they're not just going to, okay, let's stick you in there and go, go, go. So just for that alone, I'm going to pick the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, if you have CMC in any kind of significant role in there, I would have to lean the other way because that means all of a sudden you have more weapons from the 49ers. But as status quo right now, either minimal role or no role for CMC that I'm going to do the basis for the pick on, I'm going for the Kansas City Chiefs.
So in fantasy, would you bench Christian McCaffrey for I'm trying to think of the right name. Kenyon Drake for the Ravens.
Yeah, I think I would go Drake right now just because you have more guarantee, I think, for Drake than CMC.
Let's see if I can pull another name here relatively quickly. Raheem Mostert for the Dolphins.
Ooh, I think I would go Mostert.
Okay. So you're pretty far from playing CMC then, I believe. Okay.
Yeah,
For what it's worth, I think CMC is going to get enough work to be fantasy okay. He's not going to be CMC that you're used to, that 20-point a week guy, but I think he's going to be okay. I don't think it's going to be enough to win this game. I think Kansas City is just too good of a team. That offense has enough fireworks, and that defense has been slowly improving over time. They held Buffalo to 23, even though it was a loss. I think Kansas City wins this game. I'm interested to see what CMC does. It's possible you don't see the full CMC unlocked until after the Niners bye week in week 9. So week 8 could be a little bit better, but not quite full. And then week 10 on, it could be monstrous. So this could also be one of those things where he gets traded. He doesn't really play this week and doesn't look great in week 8. Week 9 on the bye, you maybe go buy him, trade for him, and save him. And then week 10 on, you just reap the rewards if he can stay healthy. All right, now we go to the Sunday night football game. It's Pittsburgh at Miami, the return of Tua Tagovailoa. I think he's in your lineup if you have him. Raheem Mostert is interesting, but Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle in your lineup as well. Mike Gesicki had a good week last week on the table here. For Pittsburgh, unfortunately, you have to play Najee Harris still. He's still getting just so much work. If he breaks one, he had a good week against Tampa Bay last week. He's going to have to score, but if he can get one, it's going to be fine. As far as the wide receivers, it looks like it's going to be Kenny Pickett, even though he had the injury. We were worried about Mitch Trubisky possibly getting the start here, but it looks like Pickett's cleared concussion protocol, on pace to start. As far as a fantasy option, don't go to the quarterback because it's a Sunday night game. You never know what can happen. Even if you believe in Kenny Pickett or you believe in Mitch Trubisky, you don't know which one's going to start as of right now. If that changes, you want to go that way, so be it. I wouldn't do it. Pat Freiermuth should be an option at tight end. And then in the wide receiver group, you have Claypool, you have Deontay Johnson, and you have George Pickens. I think Deontay Johnson is the only one you really want to play. He is top 8 in targets on the season. He hasn't gotten the production, but I think as that continuity and getting Kenny Pickett involved, it will slowly improve. But I don't know if you play any of those 3 this week. Game is in Miami. Tua coming back. Dolphins, 3 straight losses. They're falling behind the Jets. They're falling well behind the Buffalo Bills. Kind of starting to become a must-win as the Patriots are 3-3 as well. Who gets the win here?
You look at this game, and bottom line, it is a get right game for the Dolphins. They need a win to stay in. So, because if all of a sudden, if they have another loss, that's not going to look good on the old record book. And you just had the Pittsburgh Steelers steal one from Tampa Bay as I'm not really sure what the hell was up with the Bucks on Sunday. That was a fairly piss poor game, but I can't see the Steelers winning against the Dolphins. You're having a Tua who's coming back, who's going to definitely be on a mission to prove himself. Hopefully, safely prove himself, but definitely prove himself. The Dolphins are going to be behind their man. They're going to be behind Tua. They're going to be supporting him, and I think they've realized the direness of the situation that they're in, that they need to win bottom line. So I tell you, all of a sudden, the Steelers looked a little bit more dangerous last week. I think the Dolphins are going to right the ship this week and get the dub.
Yeah, I think too is a big boost to this team. They are much better with him record wise than without. Let's not look at the fantasy side of things from that aspect. Win loss, Miami wins a lot more with Tua. Tyreek Hill on pace for almost 2,000 yards receiving this year. So anybody who said, "Oh, Tyreek Hill with Tua not going to be great," Tyreek Hill's been great with Skyler Thompson and Teddy Bridgewater on top of Tua Tagovailoa. So I think Miami is the better team. I think this is the return to form. Their defense is getting healthy. Their offense is getting healthy. I think Miami comes out, shows out. Again, 3 weeks ago, we were looking at Miami as maybe this team is a Super Bowl contender when they beat Buffalo. I think this is going to be a return to form for that, and they hopefully will stay healthy the rest of the way. But I'm going to take the Dolphins to win this one. And then we go to the Monday Nighter. Chicago Bears at the New England Patriots. The Patriots have been very dominant defensively. I think the New England defense is the play of the week at the defense position. Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris are interesting. If Harris does not play, Stevenson is a smashed play. If he does, I think Stevenson is still the better option because Harris is coming back from injury. But in the receiving game, I don't trust a whole lot. No quarterback in this one, I think, is really trustworthy as well. But for the Bears, you have David Montgomery, and I think that's the end of list for Chicago options in fantasy. This is not going to be a fantasy game. I think it's going to be a very, very low scoring game as well. Bill Belichick does really well against rookie head coaches. You saw that when they played Detroit a couple weeks ago, 29-0. Chicago, Matt Eberfluth. I don't know, Eberfluth. Whatever his name is. It's a stupid name. He's going to get fired in a couple years. I don't need to know it. He's not as bad as Matt Nagy, but Eberflus. There it is. I do think
Say
that
that
Bill
three times
Belichick
real fast.
Yeah. I do think New England's defense is the play of the week, so I'll go pick New England here. I just think that they're going to dominate Chicago defensively. It's going to be a very low scoring, probably like a 20-6 game. This is going to look like a Thursday night game on Monday Night Football, I believe. So I'm going to take the Patriots. I don't think it's a close game. Who do you got, Joel?
Yeah, definitely it's one of those games you're going to be holding your nose while you're watching or listening to. Don't have any confidence in the Bears at all, especially with how the Patriots utterly dominated the freaking Lions last week. And I don't know if they're going to do quite the same to the Bears, but Bears could be in for a long, 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 long night, and got to go the Pats, even with their third string quarterback.
Mac Jones is questionable, though. He might play. All right. Now, I know you had a list of the trade candidates. Let's quickly go through those and final thoughts. We're already over an hour, but I want to do this trade list because it sounds fun.
All right. The quick. We'll do the quick version. By Deontay Johnson.
Yes, I think he is a buy candidate. Again, he's 8th in targets on the season, so he's got a lot of upside. He's just got to start catching them, and I think it's going to get better with Kenny Pickett as time goes on.
All right. Buy or sell, Joe Mixon.
If you can buy him, I think he is going to be great. I thought previously in the offseason that he was the number 4 running back last year, got an offensive line upgrade. We're going to see him get better. Last few weeks, they've got the passing game going, which has unlocked the ground game. So I think you go out and buy Joe Mixon if these Joe Mixon owners are willing to sell him. But if you're me, I have Joe Mixon. I'm not selling him.
Buy or sell, Dalvin Cook.
I think you sell. I really don't know. I think it's going to be a passing offense. If you can sell him for good traditional Dalvin Cook value, I think it's a good time to sell. You either sell or hold. I don't think you go out and buy him right now.
All right, and the last name, A.J. Brown.
I think AJ Brown's a sell. I really think the Eagles are a ground and pound team. He's had a few good weeks. He's going to have good weeks, but I think his value is a little higher than you'd expect. So I think I'd sell AJ Brown, probably more of a hold. But if you're going just to give me the option to buy and sell, I'd rather sell him and see what I can get back. And again, all of these are based on team needs as well. If you need a wide receiver, you might go buy AJ Brown, or if you need a running back, you might go buy Dalvin Cook, even though I personally wouldn't.
Those are some players.
Yeah. So, anyways, we might have more of those next week as well. But anyways, it's time for final thoughts. And Joel, you said it's about the Broncos, and you're on the clock. Let's go. Let's ride.
Yeah, more like let's crash. The Broncos gave Russell Wilson a $245 million contract to lock him up for 7 years. They are ranked last in points per game in the NFL. They mortgaged their future by giving away 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and 3 players. This is a tweet from DOV Kleinman. This is bad. And to follow that up, it's kind of cringeworthy when Russell Wilson is giving a press conference that's really a Subway sandwich ad, and you're kind of going, "Oh, that danger witch," and you just, dude, because I saw there was an article that apparently because of social media trolling, the danger witch has been removed from Subway's menu, and because I was just like, I was looking at this quote, and I'm going quote, and I'm going, is this a press conference or is this a Subway ad? I'm just like, dude, I'm like, I know you need money, but just yikes.
Yeah, if Denver loses this week, it's going to be Broncos Nation. Let's slide, because they're going to be on a losing streak that's pretty big. Anyways, my final thought.
Broncos Nation, let's hide.
Yeah. My final thought is going to be about the Washington Commanders. They are a dumpster fire organization. Last year, they literally dumped poop on their fans during a game. They had a railing collapse and almost killed Jalen Hurts. And this year, they are not off to a whole lot better start. Of course, there is the whole controversy around Dan Snyder and the workplace practice, and
he has not been voted out yet.
He may get voted out at some point. There's the story that he has dirt on other owners and Commissioner Roger Goodell, because that's what you do. That's what a not guilty person does. There's also the story.
Did you see the blurb from Jerry Jones, who was like, "Don't bleep with me," when he was talking about because he's trying to block Goodell's contract or something.
Yeah. There is the bounce check for the fan who won the 50-50 raffle.
I saw that story.
It was almost $15,000. The team finally took him weeks to get it. They finally cut him a check. He goes to cash it, and it bounces. And the guy got a $15 overdraft fee because he's like, I got $15,000. He did something, and they went, no, you don't. That check bounced. And then the cherry on top of the Commanders turd season so far to me is Chris Cooley, the tight end for the Washington Redskins when they were Redskins. He's the jersey when I wear it's still a Redskins jersey because I haven't gotten a Commanders one yet, but that's the jersey I have from the Washington franchise.
Because the Commanders is such a cool name.
Yeah, and their jerseys suck. Side note before I go any further, those Cardinals black helmets with that red tint in the background when the light hit it, very nice touch, by the way. Chris Cooley was
the new Tampa Bay Lightning reverse jerseys.
I did, and I want to talk quickly about those in a second. I do want to talk about those in a second. But Chris Cooley was elected by the fans as one of the best players in franchise history. He is refusing to come to the ceremony because he doesn't want to be affiliated with the team anymore. He said, I love Washington. I still respect and root for this team. This is still my team. He spent his entire career with Washington, and I love the fans, and I appreciate you voting me in, but I can't be associated with these idiots right now. So Chris Cooley, legend of the franchise in the last 20, 25 years, rejecting the honor of being in a ceremony for greatest players of all time because he doesn't want to be affiliated with the rest of the team. Also, yes, the NHL reverse retro jerseys are out. San Jose Sharks went with the white Golden Seals throwback jerseys from the Oakland Golden Seals days. I like them, but the best one is the Lightning one. Absolutely. The old school Storm jersey was a blue with like waves and rain and lightning. They brought it back in white. Looks very nice. I would say right now the reverse retro game, the Lightning blue that they did a couple years back, and this one are the two best. It's the best team for reverse retro jerseys so far.
Jerseys are doing a little bit better than the team is right now.
Sharks got their first win in 6 games. Woo! Yeah.
Well, Lightning are having a bit of a tough stretch right now.
Yeah, between the reverse retro for the Lightning, the reverse retro for the Sharks, and the 2 new Sharks released jerseys this year, it could be a very expensive next few months for me. With that being said, we have this is one of our longer podcasts, but it had been a minute, so we had a little bit extra worked up built into the system. So we're going to quickly wrap this one up. I am Flying Ryan Gilchrist along with
Tampa Motormouth Joel Verlin. Who does not have his own sandwich on Subway?
Yes. So hopefully we will be back to a normal schedule. We are beyond the hurricane. Hopefully Joel's hand will recover and he won't fall again and get hurt. I won't hopefully get hurt. And we'll be able to enjoy week 7, talk about it next week, get you ready for Thursday Night Football in week 8. Can't believe we're already halfway through the season.
Find out how many picks are hopefully not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we're finally clearly above 500 for both of us, which is we started off real bad and it's gotten better. But anyways, we're going to hopefully keep improving. Hopefully I'm going to make up 6 games on Joel. Only 2 opportunities this week, but only time will tell. With that said, we gone.